Thank you, Shira, and I will be representing Benny, and my presentation here is based on his research. I put it into context, and this is the first exposition of a wonderful research he did for us at our project. So I will start. In 2 weeks, we will mark 101 years from the inception of modern planning in Jerusalem, as introduced by the British authorities. On the 19th of January, 1921, the first meeting of the Jerusalem Local Town Planning Committee took place, only 5 days after the town planning order was approved and finally published in February 1921. This meeting dealt only with technicalities, and the next meeting only with the procedural process for building permits. Town planning advisor Charles Robert Ashby, who was already mentioned this morning, and city engineer Ben-Zion Guinea, who will be mentioned later on today, were required to prepare a new composite city plan based on earlier plans prepared by McLean, Geddes, and the Ashby-Geddes plan, together with 3 approved sections of Jerusalem plan. All the images today will not be good because they are not scanned. And they show, so we show the Ben-Zion Guinea's plan and all the garden suburb neighborhoods, which I will show later. Several drafts were prepared, but not fully approved until 1922. And that's the year when Ashby left and Clifford Holliday joined and took over as town planning advisor with a whole new approach to modern town planning techniques in Jerusalem. According to the minutes of the Jerusalem Town Planning Committee, there were 7 other meetings convened during the same year, and they all dealt with sections of the Jerusalem plan, Talpiot neighborhood, the first of the Jewish garden suburbs, and another neighborhood, Beit Israel. From 1922 until 1948, end of the British Mandate, the Jerusalem Town Planning Committee, together with parallel government committees, the central and the district committees, dealt with many planning issues at different municipal levels. All in all, in 30 years of British rule, 5 plans were made for the city, generally reflecting planning in Britain and introducing a completely different set of land ownership and development to the area. These plans set the direction of Jerusalem growth until this very day, introducing such concepts of modernization and Western urban planning as sanitation, open spaces, parcellation, and planning paradigms as adapted to Jerusalem according to the British perception of the Holy City. They set the skeleton for many of the new neighborhoods of the growing city. They introduced the ring road system around the old city and set guidelines and regulations for building heights, building density, and building material. The newly introduced planning system was used by the different communities of Jerusalem according to their capability and more so their own needs in the growing city. For example, we know that the Jewish sector condemned the regulative system as a political tool, restricting the development of Jewish Jerusalem, and there were many building violations of other no planning at all or violation of existing plans. After 1948 and the end of the mandate, British planning served for the development of both parts of the divided city. While each part of the city developed separately, after 1967, the Israeli planners, surprisingly enough, and we use this a lot today, found they relate to the original sentiments set by the British and were quick to pick up on them. One way or another, British planning set the rules and regulations, directions, and skeleton for any further building of the city. Although British sentiments relating to planning of conservation were somewhat debated under British Israeli system, generally followed and present in any future planning of the city. The official collection of the work of the Jerusalem Town Planning Committee was kept at the Jerusalem Municipality and naturally became a major component in its accumulating archives. As a result, Jerusalem Municipality Historical Archives of 2021 holds archival records of some 1,000 British town planning schemes, approved plans, hundreds of maps, and minutes of the town planning committees across. But just a little bit about the municipality itself. The municipality, as it describes itself in its site, serves as the historical archive of the city, its schools, and its urban institutions. The archive serves as historical archive for the city as a whole, caring for lasting keeping of records made within public institutes, public bodies, and various public figures who serve the city. It keeps records from the late Ottoman period onwards. It has some 3,500 running meters of material. It has 25,000 posters and photographs, and I will not mention the others. There's quite a lot there. 2 major ways to access the material held in the archives is through a basic printed list of subjects. This is what it looks like. It's just a Word document. Or through a manual catalog of cards which direct to the containers or files where the actual documents are kept. The lists are not compatible and neither of them is comprehensive. According to these lists, material concerning town planning is kept in several divisions. Division number 12, mandate, keeps material of different urban committees, including the Jerusalem Town Planning Committee. Division 6 holds mandate planning of relating to unique themes such as Mamila Cemetery, antiques. Another division which holds material which relates to the British planning of the city is the Jordanian Planning Division, which relates to Eastern Jerusalem and includes such sites as long gone Jurat El Anab or Chutzot HaYotzer. That's we call that area today. Mount Scopus Hadassah campus, Damascus Gate, which we discussed a few days ago, and so on. Other divisions hold material of the city engineer and public works department, or Shefa Shipuk Ne'ir, as we call it today. Of course, there are lots of separate files of planners and architects who worked in the city, such as Charles Robert Ashby, whom I have an intimate acquaintance with his collection, as I did my master's thesis on containers 832 and 833. And I already know that some of the documents that I use are not there anymore. And of course, other personal files of many, many figures who built the city, and we are happy with them until today. For example, the parcellation plan of Talpiot Baka, drawn by Otto Hoffman in Heker Yelin office, and lots of other neighborhoods such as Beit Vagan, Gregorius, Nachalat Achim, Oel Moshe, Even Israel, Tochnit le Nachalat Mitzpeh, between Beit Safaf and Malcha, two Arab villages, and all these plans, and of course, lots of beautiful buildings and plans which are kept in the municipality, but they're not our subject today. The meticulous documentation of the British Mandate Planning Collection, I will just mention that, as Benny keeps saying, all this archival material relating to the modern planning of Jerusalem has hardly been touched, and he made a beautiful list of researchers that use this material and are based on it, and he keeps asking, how come? There's so much, there's such wealth, it is so important, how come it's hardly being published or even researched? So the meticulous documentation of the British Mandate Planning Collection, carried out by Benny Weil over the years, and which we expose here for the first time, illustrates the importance of the collection of Jerusalem Municipality historical archives as a whole, and specifically of the planning material, which is substantial to any work or research or practical building in the city, planning or conservation, as it unveils the logic behind the development of the city over the years. It contains many plans which were implemented long after the British Mandate was over, leaving behind contested matters unresolved, yet already planned, and of course composes the basis for any urban development or any writing of what is called the inner city. The analysis brings into discussion questions of technical matters regarding parallel and overlapping filing systems, changes of system over time, and changes which occur in the archives and its system due to changes in personnel or official regime. What happens when the city engineer is replaced, and so does his personal filing system? What happens when the system changes and a new filing system is brought into use? And here are some examples of planning files registries which Benny collected. They are so different. What happens when the system changes and a new filing system is brought into use? What happens when an office changes location and a new numbering of the boxes begins? Or the box is lost altogether. Finally, this examination raises more inherent matters of archival work, cataloging bureaucracy and filing, as those raised by Laura Ann Stoller, which Tovi has already mentioned, and rightfully so, and relating to the colonial order of things as seen through the archival production, colonial knowledge, and the privileged social categories it produced. And more specifically, in Jerusalem, revealing the power relations between British, Jews, and Arabs living in Jerusalem at the time. It also highlights the practice of archiving rather as a process than to the archives as things or final product, as the often changes in filing systems and methodology reflect changes in personnel or manpower and their nature. For example, when foreign names of British planners intertwine with those of locals, mainly Jewish planners. And finally, in this brief overview, they reveal the categories, conceptual frame, and practices of colonial authorities and their taxonomic states, as the names chosen for places and the categories used to keep them in the archives expose foreign concepts of the landscape and its people. Not necessarily concept and not necessarily foreign, but definitely something that has been stabilized over the years, and we have to keep using them because that's how they appear in the archives, in the documents. Finally, this meticulous description of the collection, its making, its storage, and in general, its whereabouts, raised serious concerns regarding the upkeep of the documents and their accessibility for present research and practice and for future generations. So I will briefly summarize Benny's findings. His research presented here is based on and updates a previous work he undertook for the Jerusalem Municipality in the late 1970s. He notes that already back then in the early presentation, the material that was held then at both the municipal archives and the state archives was being preserved in primitive conditions in relation to archival requirements of the day in the 1970s. Furthermore, as a result of the removal to new modern storage, a considerable part of the original archival material document in the previous work was lost, whether as a direct result of the transfer or under other circumstances. Upon current review of the material, it was noted that the files and plans in these series are no longer intact, with many files missing or moved to other locations, thus requiring cross-references of parallel files between these and other archives and collections where some of the missing files or planning documents might be found. So Benny's list is composed of a total of 4 series spanning different years and holding different types of plans. The first one is the series of town planning schemes, which is central to the entire mandatory planning system since it links and connects all the additional series described in the abstract. It consists of correspondence files, plans of various sizes, lots of modifications. The series with its various components, 3, which I will list below, continue to serve as the basis for the numbering of the city planning files, even after the end of the mandate period. And in the case of the files of town planning schemes, remained in use until just a few years ago. The second one is the approved plans. It includes copies of all plans approved during the period of the British mandate in Jerusalem from 1922 until the end of the mandate. It contains about 700 plans. The series is kept in the municipal archives. Unfortunately, a large number is missing. A number of files is missing. Benny found that many of them were located in other boxes which had different names on them. He was very meticulous. He did a very, very thorough research. And many of the early file covers are also missing. So also the notes and the records and of the whereabouts of the files is missing. Another set is the parcellation plans. And like all other series, the use of the parcellation plans is a collection of maps only, mainly parcellation plan, but what's also interesting about them is that the city engineer, Berenbaum, I don't know his first name, was obviously very careful with his work and very meticulous as well. And most of the entries are in his distinctive handwriting, and his name keeps appearing, Berenbaum. So everywhere Berenbaum worked, the list is full and complete. However, the collection is not. Another part is the district or central town planning committee, but what I really want to stress are the 3 sections of the town planning schemes, and especially town planning schemes number 1 to 25, which attest to the overall importance of the British planning collection. It holds 27 of the most important and leading plans in Jerusalem during the British mandate, as detailed below. So this is just a part. I think it's the most important part, but it's just a part of this vast collection. 16 district or neighborhood plans that contain most of the built-up area of the city. And this is just the index, and you can see that the whole city, I hope you can see, again, it's not scanned, so it's not a very good copy. But most of the neighborhoods of the time were planned and kept, and you can see what we call West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem, Jewish neighborhoods, mixed neighborhoods. Everything is in that plan. 3 sections of the urban ring road. This is a plan that I've never seen before, and I'm a British planning expert. Clifford Holiday, a schematic development plan, which mainly shows the logic of the ring roads, which were planned around the old city. And here are some of the parts of the roads themselves. And finally, 3 plans on important issues for the city. Shira, I think you will like this. The city walls and the planned park around the walls. the nature reserve area on the slopes of Mount Scopus and Silwan, and also a plan of what's called the eastern area, a semi-arid area between the east of the eastern villages and up to the municipal boundary. I think that's something worth exploring. And I will conclude. In spite of the obvious importance of the collection we briefly described above, these collections are hardly accessible. Very short hours of opening a week, 9 hours in total. Acute shortage of manpower, which is mainly composed of young, regularly changing volunteers who have no expertise or previous knowledge, and because they change things, they change often, they have no chance of learning anything. Basic and incomplete cataloging system, and worst of all, misplaced and lost files. Possibly the most acute threat with the British Mandate collection is the official decision published in March 2019, and I was quite stunned to find it in the municipality website, and I'm sorry for the Hebrew, I couldn't find an official English translation, but it says, the new archive for the capital of Israel, and it ironically states, a nation that does not respect its past will have a dull present and an uncertain future. And just a few quotes. Jerusalem municipality will promote a vast project for the upgrade of the city archive for making it lively and active. The municipality wishes to serve as a role model to archival conduct. The decision as to which material will be transported to a magniza. What's a magniza? A faraway location. I couldn't find a translation for that. And which will remain in the historic archives and taken by the state archivist. So it will remain in the city, but taken by the state archivist. And just to conclude, the municipality highly regards leaving the historic archive in the city, considering its conservation will be available. The decision of its actual location will take place at a later date. I am very concerned. Thank you.